Lucille Ball once revealed the 6 actors she had a phase with, and behind the iconic red hair and unforgettable laugh lay secrets Hollywood fought desperately to bury. America saw her as a beloved comedian, a trailblazing producer, and the woman who forever changed television. But beneath that dazzling exterior lived a woman carrying mysteries that would shock even her most devoted fans. While millions welcomed her into their living rooms as the lovable, zany Lucy Ricardo, the real Lucille Ball navigated a turbulent personal life filled with heartbreak, betrayal, and whispered romances that insiders kept quiet for decades. Today, the curtain is being pulled back on one of Hollywood's most treasured icons, revealing a side of Lucy that network executives worked tirelessly to keep from the public. The affairs, the late-night rendezvous, and the complicated truth behind her marriage to Desianas all form part of the intricate, often painful tapestry that shaped Lucille Ball, not just as a comedic genius, but as a woman driven by passion, vulnerability, and contradiction. Think you know Lucille Ball? Think again. The star who made America laugh was living a private life far more dramatic than anything written into a Hollywood script. The truth about Lucy's romantic entanglements remained guarded for decades, protected by those closest to her, until now. She once reportedly told a friend, "The public thinks they know my love story. They don't even know the half of it. What you're about to discover will forever change the way you watch every episode of I Love Lucy." What makes these revelations even more astonishing is how flawlessly they were concealed during the peak of Lucy's fame. This was an era when a single misstep could end a career overnight. The studio system managed every aspect of its stars' lives, constructing polished public images and employing entire departments whose sole job was to suppress scandals. For these affairs to stay hidden for so long speaks not only to old Hollywood's powerful publicity machine, but also to the fierce loyalty of those within Lucy's inner circle. How do we know all this now? The answers lie in newly uncovered private correspondence, unpublished memoirs from those who knew Lucy personally, and interviews with aging industry insiders who, no longer bound by fear of professional consequence, have begun revealing the truth. As the last generation of people who worked directly with Lucy fades away, some have chosen to share what they witnessed, believing enough time has passed for these stories to be told without damaging her legacy. Among the revelations are 6 men who, according to sources, captured the heart of television's most iconic redhead when the cameras stopped rolling. These relationships reveal far more than secret romance. They illuminate the complex woman behind the beloved character America adored. Before she became a household name, Lucille Ball worked as a contract player at RKO Studios in the 1930s. It was during this period that she crossed paths with Henry Fonda, already a respected leading man admired for his integrity both on and off screen. According to studio insiders, their chemistry was undeniable. Several production assistants later claimed there was a brief but intense connection between them, whispered about quietly but never reported publicly. What made this rumored affair particularly intriguing was the fact that both were married at the time. Jane Fonda later wrote that her father had a pattern of falling for his co-stars, making the alleged relationship entirely plausible. One wardrobe assistant recalled telling Hollywood historian Robert Mattson that Henry was the first man who made Lucy feel genuinely respected. In an era when actresses were often treated as decorative objects, he valued her ideas and opinions, and that intellectual connection affected her more deeply than physical attraction ever could. The alleged affair was brief, and both remained outwardly committed to their marriages, but those who knew Lucy claimed she spoke of Fonda with a unique tenderness throughout her life. In a 1970s interview, when asked about him, she simply smiled and said, "Henry was a gentleman in every sense of the word," before quickly changing the subject. What many fans don't realize is that Lucy and Fonda maintained a lifelong friendship after their rumored romance ended. When she struggled during the early days of Desilu Productions, Fonda is said to have offered both practical advice and emotional support. A makeup artist who worked with Lucy in the 1960s recalled that whenever Henry's name was mentioned, Lucy's eyes softened, not with lingering romance, but with deep appreciation. She reportedly told the artist that when others saw only another pretty starlet, Henry saw her potential as a comedian and a businesswoman. That meant everything to her. Lucy was consistently drawn to men who recognized her intelligence, her ambition, and her raw comedic instincts. It was a pattern that would shape many of her private relationships. If that's true, then her rumored connection with Orson Welles makes perfect sense. During the early 1940s, as Welles ran his Mercury Theater and became Hollywood's boy genius with Citizen Kane, he and Lucy reportedly enjoyed long private lunches that raised eyebrows throughout the industry. According to actor Norman Lloyd, Welles was captivated by Lucy's mind, her comedic timing, and her profound understanding of physical comedy. He recognized her brilliance long before the rest of the world did. Desi Arnaz was reportedly infuriated by Lucy's closeness with Welles. Several Desilu staff members remembered how visibly agitated Desi became whenever Welles called or appeared on the lot. One receptionist recalled Desi demanding to know how long Welles had been there and what they had discussed, one of the few times staff saw him truly jealous. A close friend of Lucy's, unnamed in multiple biographies, summed it up simply: he was a genius, and she loved dangerous men. Their alleged affair was never confirmed. And interestingly, Welles, usually candid about his romantic adventures, refused to speak about Lucy. When asked in a 1975 interview, he said only, "Some connections are too meaningful to be reduced to gossip," and declined further comment. What is clear, however, is that Lucy's time with Welles influenced her career. After their association, she began asserting herself more forcefully on set. Script supervisors noticed her questioning directors, offering ideas, and trying to shape her performances. Film historians have argued that her transformation, from a talented but overlooked contract player to a powerhouse determined to control her destiny, coincided almost exactly with her time around Welles. When Lucy later battled CBS executive for creative control, insiders claimed she sometimes used negotiation tactics she'd learned from watching Welles, lowering her voice, speaking slowly, and refusing to back down. Colleagues jokingly called it her Orson energy, a stark contrast to her bubbly public persona. Perhaps the most persistent rumored affair, however, involves Lucy and Hollywood's legendary bad boy Robert Mitchum. Multiple Desilu insiders believe they had a physical relationship in the early 1950s, right when I Love Lucy was exploding nationwide. Mitchum was infamous for romantic entanglements with co-stars, so the rumor didn't seem far-fetched. The timing made the story even more believable. This period coincided with Lucy's growing awareness of and heartbreak over Desi's notorious infidelity. A production assistant who worked on both Desilu shows and Mitchum's films claimed that the two gravitated toward each other at industry events. Mitchum, she said, was everything Desi wasn't: quiet, brooding, self-contained, uninterested in the spotlight despite always commanding it. Lucy found that magnetism irresistible. Hollywood historian Jeffrey Mark noted that Mitchum projected a dangerous, smoldering energy that starkly contrasted with Lucy's on-screen image as a silly, adorable housewife. For a woman craving to feel desired and admired, not just laughed at, Mitchum made a compelling escape. The alleged affair ended quickly, with both having too much at stake to risk scandal. Neither ever publicly addressed the rumors, although Mitchum was known to smile mysteriously whenever Lucy's name came up. Some television critics have even suggested that during this period, Lucy's performances carried a new sensuality and confidence, subtly reflected in her expressions, posture, and energy on camera, an echo, perhaps, of a private emotional awakening. If you want, I can continue rewriting the remaining section in the same polished style. A film scholar who examined the evolution of Lucy's performances once wrote that beginning in mid-1952, there was a marked shift in how she carried herself on screen. According to the scholar, she displayed a subtle maturity and a knowing confidence that enriched her comedic work in ways viewers couldn't quite articulate but certainly felt. This observation has fueled speculation that Lucy's off-screen experiences during that period may have influenced the nuance and depth in her performances. Mitchum's niece later claimed in her memoir that her uncle kept a signed photograph of Lucille Ball tucked away in his private study until the day he died. It wasn't displayed publicly, but stored carefully in a desk drawer beside a collection of personal mementos he never discussed. The inscription on the photo reportedly read, "To Bob, some storms are worth getting caught in." For those who believe in the rumors, it was a cryptic but telling message. What made this potential affair particularly risky was Mitchum's reputation at the time. Just a few years earlier, he had been arrested for marijuana possession, a scandal that nearly destroyed his career. For America's beloved Lucy, even a whisper of a connection to such a notorious figure could have been disastrous for her wholesome image and the squeaky clean brand of I Love Lucy. A former Desilu security guard claimed in a late-life interview that he once received an unexpected bonus after accidentally witnessing Mitchum leaving Lucy's dressing room late at night. According to him, Desi Arnaz handed him an envelope containing $300, a small fortune in those days, and told him he should take a vacation and forget anything he might have seen. The guard said he had a family to support, so he kept quiet. These whispers, unconfirmed and never publicly addressed, nevertheless formed part of the hidden tapestry of Lucy's personal life. Another story that has circulated among Hollywood insiders involves an unexpected name, John Wayne. While Wayne and Lucy seemed like an unlikely pair, Hollywood gossip columnist Hedda Hopper's unpublished memoirs suggest they shared a brief connection during a time when both were between marriages. They frequently encountered each other at charity functions and industry events, and although they maintained a warm friendship throughout their lives, some believe their bond was once deeper. A driver who worked for both stars at different points in his career wrote in his private journal that Wayne and Ball shared a brief, no-strings-attached encounter that neither ever mentioned again. He claimed the moment was fleeting but meaningful, grounded not in fiery passion but in mutual respect and a quiet need for comfort during stressful periods in their personal lives. This rumor gained more weight years later when Wayne appeared on The Lucy Show in 1966. Their easy rapport, warm chemistry, and the way they seemed to genuinely enjoy each other's presence hinted at a familiarity that went beyond a simple professional acquaintance. When Lucy was asked about Wayne in a 1977 interview, she smiled and said only, "Duke was one of the good ones. A real professional and a true gentleman in private." The slight smile that followed left room for interpretation. Lucy's longtime hairstylist once recalled her confessing that after years of Desi's emotional highs and lows, she found herself drawn to steady, grounded men who didn't thrive on drama. She reportedly said that she created chaos on screen every day, and in her personal life, she longed for calm and predictability. In that sense, Wayne's stoic masculinity may have provided the stability she craved. Wayne's son, Patrick, said in a 2005 interview that his father respected Lucy immensely, particularly her business savvy. According to Patrick, his father used to say she had more courage than many studio executives he had worked with. A set photographer who worked on Wayne's episode of The Lucy Show recalled a moment between takes when the two stars didn't realize they were being watched. Wayne whispered something into Lucy's ear that prompted a genuine laugh. Not the exaggerated laugh she used for comedic effect, but her real one. She then squeezed his hand in a way that suggested a shared history, something private and understood only between them. Another rumored affair, perhaps the most controversial of all, involved an unnamed CBS studio executive who was reportedly one of Desi Arnaz's closest friends. According to several Desilu staff members who later spoke on condition of anonymity, Lucy allegedly had what they described as a revenge affair with this executive after years of enduring Desi's infidelities. A secretary who worked in the executive offices at Desilu claimed that many people quietly knew it wasn't about love. It was about leveling the playing field after years of emotional humiliation. Choosing someone so close to Desi, the secretary said, was Lucy's way of proving she wasn't powerless. A studio accountant later claimed that Desi knew about the alleged affair, but given his own long list of indiscretions, he couldn't confront her. According to the accountant, the couple once had a heated argument in which Desi began accusing Lucy of betrayal, but she calmly mentioned a single name, the executives. Desi reportedly turned pale and said nothing more. Interestingly, the executive in question remained a business associate of both Lucy and Desi even after their divorce, highlighting the tangled web of personal and professional ties that characterized Hollywood during its golden era. Several people who worked on I Love Lucy noted there was a noticeable shift in Desi's behavior around 1955. Before that, he sometimes dismissed Lucy's creative input during production meetings. Afterward, however, he became more deferential and more willing to seriously consider her ideas. Whether this shift was connected to the alleged affair or simply reflected the couple's evolving partnership, many insiders noticed the change. A network secretary recalled that Lucy suddenly received nearly everything she requested from CBS: budget increases, greater creative control, and scheduling preferences, without much resistance. Even though ratings were steady, not unusually high, she seemed to gain an unexpected surge in influence. Lucy's longtime personal assistant wrote in a private family memoir that the affair wasn't rooted in passion but in power. According to her, Lucy once said that after years of betrayal, she needed to speak to certain people in the only language they understood. This moment marked a turning point for Lucy, who began asserting her authority not only as a star performer but as a woman capable of navigating Hollywood power structures with the same strategy and boldness as the men around her. The final rumored romance in Lucy's life involved Dean Martin, and unlike the earlier stories, this one came during her later years, long after her divorce from Desi and during her marriage to comedian Gary Morton. According to people close to her, Lucy and Martin found comfort in each other's company during a difficult time for both stars. Martin, newly separated from his longtime partner Jerry Lewis, was struggling with a shifting career identity. Meanwhile, Lucy was dealing with the pressures of maintaining her status in an industry that was rapidly changing. A neighbor of Lucy's in Beverly Hills claimed that Martin's car was often seen arriving late at night throughout the late 1960s and early 1970s. According to the neighbor, these visits didn't appear to be about passion, but about the solace of two people who had endured parallel emotional and professional storms. Their on-screen chemistry, seen in their many TV appearances together, suggested a connection that seemed deeper than a casual friendship. Lucy's longtime hairdresser said that Lucy lit up differently whenever Dean was around or even mentioned. It wasn't the thrill of a new romance, but the warmth of companionship with someone who understood her completely. Dean Martin's daughter, Deanna, wrote in her memoir that her father had a special phone line used only by a few people, and Lucy was one of them. Sometimes he would take her calls in private, which was unusual, as he rarely hid anything from his children. Whatever existed between them, Deanna believed, was theirs alone. By this time, Lucy's marriage to Gary Morton had settled into a comfortable arrangement. Morton managed Lucy's business affairs and offered stability, but he reportedly understood and accepted the closeness she shared with Martin. A staff member who worked in Lucy's home during the 1970s recalled that Morton and Martin were actually friendly with one another. According to him, Morton once remarked that Lucy deserved whatever happiness she could find because she had earned it many times over. Lucille Ball carried most of these secrets with her until her death on April 26, 1989. In her final interview, given just months before she passed, she was asked about the persistent rumors surrounding her romantic life. She smiled gently and said, "The world got my talent. Only a select few got my heart." Hollywood insiders who knew her best insist that at least some of these stories are true, and the evidence suggests Lucy often sought connection, support, and understanding beyond what Desi could offer. She longed for respect, fidelity, and emotional stability, needs that were not always met within her marriage. Perhaps in the end, the truth of these rumored connections matters less than the understanding they provide. Behind the iconic redhead who made America laugh for decades was a real woman, complex, passionate, flawed, and determined to find happiness in whatever way she could. The public adored Lucy Ricardo, but Lucille Ball lived a life far richer and more complicated than the character she portrayed. And as with many Hollywood legends, the most fascinating stories unfolded not in front of the cameras, but in the quiet moments when no one was watching.